Okay, welcome to this tutorial on completing assignment 8 and analyzing the data for your biodiversity project. When you open assignment 8, you'll see two different attachments. The first one is a Google Docs, of which you'll have your own copy of the Biodiversity Data Analysis 2021. The first thing you need to do is pick a question that you're interested in using the data that you've collected and your classmates have collected. Pick a question to answer. You've got some examples here for you. Read through those. That might spark something for you. You can actually choose one of these on your own, or maybe you notice something while you're out there doing your survey that you might be interested in looking into. I was doing my survey kind of in my yard, but I noticed right nearby I could see the forest, and I started to wonder if I was seeing as many species in my yard as I would see in the forest, and it made me think, I wonder which habitats have the most species. The other attachment that you'll see is a copy of the biodiversity database. This has all the data that you and your classmates collected this year as well as last year. If you go to the Site Summary Data tab, that's going to have the most useful information for you. And so actually above this black line is data collected last year, and below this black line is data collected this year. You're going to want to use the data that's here to answer your question. There's probably a lot more here than you need, and so you're going to need some way to summarize or organize, analyze what's here. It may be easiest for you to do this by hand, and that's what I'm going to do here. I put my question up top just so I can remember what I'm doing, keep track of things. And so I'm going to go ahead and put habitat types here and start listing the different habitat types. Okay, there are the habitat types. I pretty quickly realized that I need to calculate averages because there are some places where students surveyed more than others. And so I need to figure out an average number of species found. And so I'm going to start by writing down each instance of total numbers of species found in each of these habitat types. For instance, in this first survey, it's in a forest, and 23 species were found. So I'm going to write 23 for forest, 23, and separate it with a comma before my next forest observation. Okay, I've got to start here, and it's going to be enough for me to at least show you how you might do this analysis, but if you're trying to answer this specific question, which you're welcome to do, you'll need to go through and complete this table. But I've got to start, and so I've calculated one average here for forest. So I added up each of these. That totaled 139 species found in forests. But I divided by 11 because these were 11 separate observations. So the average number of species found in a forest was 12.6. And I'm going to compare those averages because, as you can see, there were so many more observations made in forests than in other places. It wouldn't be a good analysis to compare 139 species found in forests compared to 15 found in agricultural fields, because as it is right now, 12.6 is actually lower than 15 on average found in agricultural fields. But hopefully there are some more data inputs for this and we can calculate some more averages here. I'm going to calculate for urban lawn and rural lawn, calculate the averages, and then I'll show you how to graph at least these three things. Like I said, your analysis can include more and should include more, but I'll just do these three to show you how to do it. All right, now that I have average number of species calculated for these different habitat types, time to make a chart to display this data visually. To make a new blank area to write, you can click this plus down at the bottom to add a new sheet. New sheets are accessible through the tabs at the bottom, and this is sheet 5. You can click the drop down and rename it. I'm going to rename it Habitat Types. Now I'm basically going to recreate my table here in Sheets, or at least a simplified version of my table, and it's going to have habitat types. And it's going to have average number of species found. Once you have a data table, you can create a chart. You can create a chart by selecting all of your data and inserting a chart. And Google's going to pick a chart from you, and you need to decide, is this appropriate? Is it a good display of your data? For this data, a bar chart is great. It shows different categories, and it shows the average number of species in those categories. One thing I don't like here is the title. And so you could change your title to be more descriptive than this. One thing that you can do is title it with your question. I'm going to do that. Nice. Well, this chart is ready for me to insert back into the document that I've been working on. To make a copy of this, you can click this drop-down menu at the right, click Copy Chart, and now it's ready to paste into your data analysis sheet right there in number 2. One of the questions on here is going to ask you about sources of error, which factors might be leading you to false conclusions. It's worth thinking about how students did their surveys, and maybe we can think that some students may not have looked as hard as other students, or they might have been made errors in the number of species they found. And those are worth thinking about, but I want you to take it a step further too. Think about things like, were our surveys truly representative? Did we get a good picture of these different habitat types? One thing that I know is I only included data from one agricultural field/orchard. There may be more of those in our shared spreadsheet, and if we have more of them, we're going to get a better picture. But if we're basing this off of just one survey, well, the survey that might have been done might have been from might have been an outlier, might have been an agricultural field that had a really high level of biodiversity, but that's not necessarily true of all agricultural fields. Maybe some types of species are easier to find than others. Maybe, for instance, plants are easier to find than fungi, and maybe plants in general are more common in certain habitats than others. So there might be some factors that are kind of confounding our data here. I want you to think really hard. What are sources of error? What might make the data that you analyze come to a misleading conclusion? All right, well, I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions as you're going through this process, the sooner you reach out, the better. Your instructor will help you if you've picked out a question and you're like, I'm not sure I can use the data in this data sheet to answer that question, or I just don't know how to use the data that's here to answer the question. Reach out to your instructor. They'll help you out with how to do that. So, okay, good luck. Have fun.